Welcome to your piano lesson. I am Gabriel Ruiz-Bernal, and today we are going to work on a piece by Spanish composer Enrique Granados. And this piece is the Dance number 5, also known as Playera. This piece has several sections. We are going to call them section A, B, C, and then it will return to section A and B. You're going to notice that they all use the same material. So the thing that you have heard, this one is going to appear in the beginning, like here. But it's also going to appear later in section B here. And on section C, on the slow section here. So this theme is going to be prominent in all the sections of this piece, which will make it very recognizable, and it's going to play with the way that the piece is worked, is composed. Now let's go into the beginning of the piece, and we're going to work through it slowly. I'm not going to play the entire thing because of the sake of making the video not too long, but the very beginning. You hear this. One of the things that we have to be careful with this is to make sure that the interval, this one, is not too aggressive. So this grace note, you don't want to make it too heavy or too slow, because if it is too slow, this interval, which is a tritone, 3 tones, 3 whole steps, becomes very bitter. It's like adding spice to your food and going too heavy on it. See? So this has to really be emphasizing the B rather than the B flat. Okay? So then, here you have the bass. You have to give the bass a nice, good weight, so it carries the rhythm and the pulse of the piece. Then this is going to be light. Just you see how my hand leans on the bass and then floats around on the ornament, and then the chords on the right hand are going to be very light. So and another reason for this to be is that when the melody comes in, the melody should not have to fight with the accompaniment. You should be able to sing comfortably and without too much strain. Okay? Notice how I just played this without pedal, which means that you want to keep a very creamy legato done with your fingers, not relying on the pedal. So you should be able to even play it without pedal at all, like this. Let's see, here. Okay, then when you add the pedal, you are giving a little bit more broad spectrum. Okay, so now we have this differentiation. We have the accompaniment that is going to be a little bit farther away, the melody that is going to be a little closer. And when the melody comes in, you want it to have plenty of breathing space. Okay? So one more thing that we want to emphasize here. We are in E minor. 2-5-1 in E minor, This is a 2, this is a 5, and back to 1. So this is just to establish the tonality. This is to say, here's where we are home, we're in E minor. Okay? But then we're going to go into a 2-5-1 that is going to take us to a relative major. So if first we're in E minor, then we are going to move to this. How is it going to happen? So notice this. E minor. And then two, 5, 1. So 2, 5, 1 in G major. So we are moving to the relative major, which means that the color is going to change. It's going to now become more luminous. It's going to have more light. So we're going to emphasize this. We want to make it also be reflecting the way that you play the melody. So the first one is, and now we are in G major. And now we are returning to E minor. So we go down in the phrase. And then the last statement. Surprise. What happened there? We went to E major. So the piece switched from E minor to E major. Okay? So we have 3 changes just in the first theme. From E minor to G major to then at the very end to E major. Okay? These are all things that you want to reflect in the melody when you are playing it, because it really brings the piece alive if you are moving along the modal changes and the tonal changes. Okay, so talking about this color, now we are going to move on to the next section. So now we are in E major, right? Okay, so for the next section, we still have the same thing. Remember the theme? Now we are in E major. So this new theme, this new section with the same theme is going to be this one. It's using the same theme in E major this time. Okay? So how do we emphasize this? All right, so a few technical aspects. You have octaves on the right hand, which means that if you don't do anything else, it's already going to be louder. So what we want to do is make sure that you are not forcing these octaves. These octaves need to be natural, and your right hand has to be relaxed. So a lot of flexibility in the wrist so you can bounce like this. See, this bouncing of the wrist is very important on these octaves. So that way you arrive here, look at the impulse that I catch. So I don't go like this, I go first catch the impulse, and then as I fall, I run. So, okay, so that's the statement. This in the score appears as fortissimo. So, well, let me see. Yeah, it is fortissimo. So, but we still have to keep the piece within a context. So if you were coming from a piece that is very, very energetic, and then it's mostly forte, and then fortissimo is one step more. You have to make it within the relation. Here, we are coming from a very soft ending, the ending of the previous section, and then we are going into fortissimo. If you go from here to here, you're going to give the impression of distortion in the sound of the piano. You want to do that gradually. There is a lot of impression of loudness that can be achieved without making the piano crack and without making the piano sound too harsh. All right. So one of those things is what we talked about: keeping your light, your touch light, but with a lot of energy, yet keeping flexibility and making sure that when you play the bass, you don't slam the bass. So if you are here, there's weight here, and there is also voicing of the octave. I don't just play a flat. I am always voicing the top note of the octave. That gives clarity, and even if you are playing pretty loud, the tone of your right hand is always going to be crisp, and it's going to be heard with plenty of clarity. So then here comes this crescendo. How do you make a crescendo if you're already in fortissimo and you have to end up here in fortissimo also? So you're going to go down to the very minimum and then raise again, and then the second fortissimo is going to feel like it is triple forte when it's really not, but it's going to give the impression, and the piano still is going to conserve the quality of the sound. So here we are, then all the way down, and then notice I don't slam the bass. I don't go boom, like, but and then plenty of lightness in your touch here. And then hear the background. You hear this? From within this background, the melody comes back. Okay, let's do this again. Section C. Okay, so the character is now going to change completely. Now the score tells us that it's going to be andante, which is going to be a step down in motion from where we were before. Also, the texture of the melody is different. It's now a single note melody, and the accompaniment is very simple. All right, so you can see the difference between the theme, the way it was treated before, and how it's now. So here, this theme is very simple. So how do we bring it to life? One of the things we want to do is emphasize the phrasing. This phrase is opening, and now the response comes here. Then the next phrase opens, and then the next one closes. So then we have 4 sections, 2 semiphrases, and then 2 other semiphrases. Those 2 sections also create a large one. So when you are thinking ahead, you want to think about the entire period. Okay. Then we have a more rhythmic section. All right. You might notice that sometimes there's a little discrepancy between what I play and what the score says. A note that is here extra and that might not show up on the score is because I use the transcription from Alicia de la Rocha, Spanish pianist who is a specialist in this repertory. And she has some bass notes that don't appear in the score, but that add a very extraordinary effect to the music. It gives us more, it makes it more settled. So if you find those missing notes, it's because I am following her transcription. So here comes the rhythmic section. And then it goes back to the, okay? So the section C with the slow theme eventually ends up in this. The score says this. I use Alicia de la Rocha's transcription, which does this, which is a much more full ending, and then it goes back to the theme. All right, so we are going to have an A minor to E minor to return. So here comes how the section C ends. And then ending, back to E minor. So the theme returns in section A prime. This time the theme can return with a little bit more energy. The reason being that section C, the slow one, works almost like nostalgic remembrance of the image of the theme. But the theme comes back, almost like a return to complete the piece, and that gives the impression of closure, and also gives the impression of having triumphed. So if this was missing, it's a theme that is in the distance, and it was missing that concept, here the theme has returned, so everything is now much more fulfilling. So section A and section B repeat the same way, which also and the end of the piece is actually very simple. There's no coda, there's no ending, so you will hear this. And it just fades away. So with the last thing, it goes back to E major, and from that point, it reverses. Alicia de la Rocha ends with an E. The score ends with a B, but the B feels more like it's just a prolongation, and the E that she plays feels more like a real ending for the piece. So I usually end also with a low E. So with this is an overlook of a brief lesson on this piece. I hope that you got a concept on the different levels, the melody, the chords, the bass, the different sections in the piece, how the theme goes from section to section, and how every time the theme is treated slightly different, and how you can reflect that in the way that you play. So I hope that this helps you with the practice of this dance number 5, Playera by Enrique Granados. All the material from this lesson is available I will post the links on the description of this video below, but just in case, you have it right here. And on the website, all the materials are available for you to download. There's no charge, so just grab them, follow the lesson with the score that I have marked. Also, the notes that I have in front of me will be at the website, so you can see everything that I'm using for this lesson. All right, well, thank you. Happy practice, and I will see you at the next lesson.